it reminds us to that we have a creator, and he's created some amazing things, and this is a way to connect with our creator.
I want to just give you a warning here, Erin. This is going to be a difficult episode for you.
Oh my God.
Because you're more of what we call indoorsy. So you buckle
True.
up, because we're going to talk about the great outdoors here. We have our friend Greta Eskridge back with us for a second podcast. And man, we were in a heavy topic talking about porn on the last one, but it was a really good topic, good conversation. So if you haven't listened to that one, listen to that for the sake of your kids. But one thing that you talk about, Greta, is not just saying no to these things, but then replacing them with better things. And that's kind of our topic today, because you've written 2 good books on this topic. The first one is entitled Adventuring Together. It's subtitled How to Create Connections and Make Lasting Memories with Your Kids. And then your more recent book is kind of a cool workbooky type thing with lots of different cool activities.
Not workbook. Workbook's negative.
Oh, is it?
I think
go.
so. I think it's like, it's an adventure book. It's like it's a resource. It's not a workbook.
Okay,
Don't say workbook.
I'll do that over. This is not a workbook. This is an adventure-y book.
It's a resource. It's a field guide.
Field guide.
It's
there
full
you
of
go.
activities and recipes.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's much more than a workbook.
Yes.
I misspoke. I was thinking workbook was like a good thing. It's not a textbook. No, this thing has a lot of really practical stuff. And the name of it, 100 Days of Adventure, Nature Activities, Creative Projects, and Field Trips for Every Season. So the title is appealing to especially parents who maybe are homeschooling, but not just homeschooling parents, to all families.
Hopefully.
So obviously from the title of the 2 books, you're talking about adventure, getting out there. It reminds me of the characters in Up, when she's like,
Russell.
Russell. No, not Russell.
Russell's,
When the
Ellie.
Ellie. Yeah.
Yes, I love her.
And she's like, adventures out there.
Yes, I adore her. I actually resonate with her quite a lot.
Yeah.
She's a great character.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe give us a little overview of the books here. Why'd you write these?
Okay.
Tell us.
So they came out of, the first book, Adventuring Together, came out of years of my own life. First, as a kid, I felt like my dad did a phenomenal job cultivating connection and relationship with us through adventures. My mom was also indoorsy. She despises dirt and also had like physical limitations. So she wasn't out taking us on hikes and stuff. But I have a whole chapter dedicated to how we still adventured together with our mom, and that was through reading books together. And so really the idea started as from my childhood, how my parents really cultivated connection with us through this idea of adventure, whether it was outside or inside on the couch with books and a cup of tea, because you can do it multiple ways. But then when I had my own kids, and at the time I had a 5, 3, and a 1-year-old, and I just was in the thick of those little years where it just feels like all you do all day, it's just this endless rotation of like feed them, clean up the crumbs and the high chair, play with blocks and books, clean those up, get them to bed, do it again at lunchtime. And I just kind of sometimes felt like the walls were closing in on me a little, and I needed variety and joy. And more than anything, I wanted to enjoy my kids, because when I was on that like endless hamster wheel of little kid years, sometimes the to-do list and the schedule became more important than the kids. And so what I decided was we were going to go out on an adventure every week. And put all the responsibilities aside, and I would just enjoy being with them. Because for me, that needed to be outside of our regular routine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I
that's
think
where it
that's a
came.
good insight. I mean, as a husband, I mean, I see that with my wife, is that when she's at home, and I think this is maybe where men and women differ a little bit, and it's a good difference.
I'm excited
Right.
about this revelation.
Well, it's going to be very controversial here to even declare men and women to be different nowadays. No, but when mom is at home, there is the constant pressure. The to-do list is always in front of you. It is harder to relax. It's harder to get away from those things. And what we found is like, I got to get mom out. And so getting out of the house, when she's out of the house, like a staycation doesn't work typically.
Unless the kids are all gone
And-
the
yeah.
husband. Then it's great. But if we're all home, that is not happening.
Yeah, we haven't, the kids haven't been gone ever for the last 20 some years. So yeah, at this stage, yeah. So the insight is, hey, go out, get out of the house.
Yeah.
Especially if mom's leading this.
Yeah.
Where I think dads probably maybe swing the pendulum the other way. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you're home. You're like, whatever. And so, well, that's where moms can help dads be a little more responsible and take some ownership of but where dads can say, hey, mom, get out of here. And so I think that right there, getting out on an adventure is a really good insight.
Okay, so I want you to define adventure because Brett's already thrown me under the bus saying I'm indoorsy. Now, I love to travel. I love
adventure.
to go on nature walks and hikes with the kids. I love to do things like that. I don't love to pretend that we're homeless, which means camping. But a conflict in our marriage has been, he grew up camping, I did not. And so then we get married and he's like, oh, this will be so great. We'll take the kids camping. And I was like, why do you leave your house, like running water and toilets and pretend to be homeless? That's fun for you. But to my defense, sitting around the campfire at night, and then I'm like, oh, this is why people do this. Because that
Under the stars
is amazing.
the
And
breeze,
then
the
seeing how
smells.
much my kids loved it helps me to love it more. But the amount of work
It's
you
an
do to
insane amount
camp.
of work. It's ridiculous. Camping, the start of camping and the end of camping is horrible. I fully agree. And I love it.
Yes.
But the middle, when
Is
you're
awesome.
there,
Yes.
is great.
Okay, so
here's insight for dads.
Okay.
Go to the campground without mom, set up.
Oh, well.
Then mom drives, gets to experience the middle. Then mom leaves and goes home, and then dad cleans up.
Oh, that'd be
But
dreamy.
also packing before you even leave the house and unpacking and doing all the
right.
laundry when you get
See,
home.
we're talking
So
people
it's-
So
out of
you're not. You
Yeah,
can never
there's-
get off the hook. I'm sorry, you're stuck, honey.
But is it? I mean, I love your cover because it's beautiful and it shows such a cute tent. Of course, I think the mom and son are reading, and it's so sweet. But adventuring is more than camping. It includes camping,
Yes.
but in your definition of
Yes.
adventure together,
Right.
it's a big umbrella
Right.
that you put out. So
Right.
talk about adventure.
This was such a sticking point writing this book because, trying to create the understanding that adventure doesn't just have to be hiking boots and a backpack. It can be so much more. So what I land on is that adventure is anything that gets you out of your regular routine. Because like that story I shared in the beginning, for me, it was the routine of constantly sweeping up crumbs and putting away toys and the nap times. But when I stepped out of our regular routine, whether that was for a nature hike or just a visit to a new library that we didn't normally go to, that was where the adventure came in. Or reading books with my mom. We were traveling to, the Florida swamps. Through the book, we're reading The Yearling. We've never been there before, but it feels like we're on an adventure because we're experiencing this new place. And so it doesn't have to be outdoors and peeing in the woods. It can be, but it also can be just going to a new place, trying a new restaurant, visiting the next town over, just the newness and experiencing getting outside of your regular routine that can sort of make you have a head down, not paying attention and looking at how beautiful the world is around you.
Yeah. And I mean, your chapters, you have a chapter on indoor adventures.
Yes.
You have a chapter on adventuring with books. And so it's a little broader definition there.
I love thinking about books too in this way because I'm a big proponent. We've done episodes about reading out loud to your kids, the importance of books. And when you read good books together, it does feel like you have gone to places and met people and you've done that together.
Right.
And we experienced this. We were just on a trip with our kids to Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C., but one of the times where for the kids and I, it felt like we've met a friend that we've read about is some of these artists that we've studied and we've read about them. And then we went to the National Art Gallery and you see the paintings that you've read about and the artists you've read about their story. And then like our 11-year-old son walks in a room, he sees one of the painting and he shrieks and it's like, because you feel like, oh, I know them.
Yes.
And we've been on an adventure and now we're getting to see in real life. Yeah. So, I think about the Little House on the Prairie books. You feel like you are a part of the westward expansion.
Yes.
And that you're living those things. So sometimes even just being intentional about reading good books with our kids can create experiences that we get to have together as a family. And it's not, it's not even going somewhere. Adventuring can just be through reading great books.
Yeah. And I always say that because we want to get hung up on the adventure itself, but I always say like the adventure is just the vehicle. The goal is really to cultivate connection, like to create bonding and relationship building with our kids. And I love to use adventure as the way to get there. And so like when we read a book together, especially when you read it as a family, like on road trips, we love to listen to books. We're all listening to it together. I'm a little bit strict about doesn't have AirPods. Did I say it right? Everybody doesn't have their AirPods in and we're all checked out from one another. Yeah. Instead, we're all listening to a book together. We're having a shared experience, a shared adventure, and it creates an instant connection because you remember, we were listening to The Hobbit when we were driving in this, area on this trip. And it's just such a great way to connect together. The whole
family.
Yeah, the whole fam. And it's great because we all experience it together and it creates an instant connection.
Is that what because in one of your chapters you're talking about how adventures change us.
Yeah.
Is that the key?
Yes.
Is that relational connection?
Yes. That's why I care about it so much. I mean, I love adventures. I love having fun. I love exploring. I love new things. I love travel. Like, give me all of that. Like, I'm the person who, after like a 3-week road trip, we did this a couple summers ago, and we're driving home the last leg of the journey. And I'm like, you guys, there's like 3 more amazing parks in Utah. Let's go. And the rest of my family's like, Mom, like it's been 3 weeks. We're ready to go home. I'm like, no, don't let it end. But the real reason I care is that I think adventures are fantastic tools for building connection. I think it's an instant connection maker.
Yeah. And, the last episode talking about pornography, and we talked about technology and smartphones too. And we want to connect with our kids. And sometimes technology is a big obstacle in that. And so I like thinking about what can we do to mix things up and not just complain about technology, but say, hey, let's go do this. And we're actually going to leave technology home.
Right.
Because I always joke with my kids of like, we can leave your phone in the car or at home because you're not a doctor. No one's going to die if they can't get a hold of you. And they're always like, Mom, because that's my line. But
I'm stealing it. I love that.
But it's not just, hey, I'm sick of seeing you on your phone. Right. It's, hey, we're gonna, because you even think about the little things that you talk about, but it's just saying, okay, tonight it's Saturday night. We actually don't have anything on so let's let's all go out for hamburgers and then go to a movie, or let's all go do something together, mixing it up. It can be small ways, but being purposeful about removing distractions so we can connect.
Yeah.
And that's something I think we're all kind of thirsty for, especially as our kids get older. We want to keep connecting. And you talk about how good it is, especially nature provides us in a different way. I mean, do a movie night or whatever, but there is something unique about getting outside in God's creation, going on a hike, being shoulder to shoulder with our kids and just talking.
Yeah.
So maybe share a little bit about, what you've really found, the goodness of doing that.
Yeah. So actually what I did decide to do in those early years was I was like, okay, two things. Number one, I need to get out of this house with these kids and enjoy them because I love them. Like I want to enjoy my kids and not just think about all the chores that they're making for me. But also I found every time I'd go somewhere, especially to the grocery store, people would look at me with my little kids, toddling along behind me like ducklings. And I was pregnant always with another child. and they would say, oh, just wait till they're teenagers. It's not going to be fun anymore. And I'm a little rebellious in the sense that if you tell me that, then I'm going to say, no, I'm doing it different. And so I decided like, okay, well, I have to intentionally create a way to not let that be our reality, but it has to start now because I can't start then. It will be too late. And so I decided every week we would go on an adventure together, and that would be a part of our family culture, a part of our family rhythm, and make it the norm that going out on a hiking trail is a fun thing to do in a way that we experience connection with each other. And we do it with friends too. It's not just our family, like let's make this the norm in your friend group too. Or that going on a backpacking trip is a fantastic way to spend our time. And just being outdoors, especially because we are away from distractions, but also it's calming. It's a respite from the world that's crazy. And I thought, how wonderful to give my kids from a young age that they know that that's a way that they can find peace and retreat is in God's creation, to teach them when they're young so that when they're adults, that's what they go to instead of all the other things that are far less beneficial that the world wants to offer them as a way to take a break.
Yeah, you're kind of giving them an appetite for better things.
Amen.
And so that's where it's like, it's not just say no, 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 but let me also let you taste this. Taste the natural world. Taste the mountains, the beach, the ocean,
Taste and see that the Lord is good because he made all of it for us.
Okay, so what is maybe your favorite like local adventure you've done with your family? Is there anything in particular you said, if we've got one thing to do, we're going to do this, or there was just the favorite kind of memory that, you pulled off some good adventure, but it was a local, like not an overnight trip, but I'm just curious, your favorite local adventure with your kids?
Well, I would say seasonally, it happens seasonally because like, for example, right now in spring, like go on a hike where there's tons of wildflowers. And even, it's not just my daughter and I who are freaking out over the wildflowers, although I will say I freak out the most, but the guys too, because it's amazing. You can't help but be excited when you see like a whole hill covered in bright colored flowers. And also at that time, you'll probably be more likely to find things like frogs and tadpoles. Like there's one of our favorite hikes where you can scoop like handfuls of tadpoles up and then go back like a few weeks later and they've all hatched, and it's like the plague of Egypt where there are so many frogs. You're just screaming with joy because it's amazing. So that's like, I would say that, or also going to the tide pools. We live close to the beach, and the tide pools, you'll always just find so many amazing things. And it's just so fun to climb on the rocks and discover a clam or a baby octopus or a fish, whatever. It just never disappoints.
Yeah.
We've talked about on the podcast about the importance of being in nature with your kids because, God reveals himself in different ways. One is through his word, and then one is through his world.
Yes.
And so it's a serious thing, actually. It's not just, our kids aren't spending time outside, we should go for a walk. We really have to fight against staying inside. Our culture is so indoorsy, as Brett said. But because if they have a deficiency in nature, then they're not connected to God in this really important way. And I've read so much about famous, really smart people and how much time they spent in nature, which is just so incredible to think about. And one book that we recommend a lot as far as making this connection with how important it is to be in nature is not written by a Christian, but it's called The Last Child in the Woods. You probably have read it.
I love that
Richard
book.
Loeb
Yes.
or Louvre, or however you say his last name.
Yeah.
And talks about how, especially in kids who struggle with attention issues, the best thing to do is to take them outside. But maybe talk about how being in nature, how you've seen the good in yourself and in your spiritual life, maybe even, but in your kids too, and just how it reminds us to that we have a creator.
Yeah.
And he's created some amazing things.
Yeah.
And this is a way to connect with our creator.
Yes, I love this topic because I think like you said, God reveals himself through his word and his world. And I always tell my kids we go into creation to get to know our creator because we see who he is. So on a grand scale, like we went to the Grand Canyon for the first time last month, and it was overwhelming to see this display of God's power and how big he is. But on a way tinier scale, when you look at the incredible design of a bug and you're holding it, and it's like one of those like shiny Japanese beetles that are bright green and they're iridescent, and you can't help but look at it and think, wow, this is a tiny little bug, and look at all the care and detail and beauty in this. That is not an accident. That is thoughtful design by a caring, creative creator. And so to be able to have experiences like that over and over again with my kids, where they see me celebrating and excited about creation and always reminding them, look what God made, look what he did, look at this is incredible, it's all him, look at this sunset. It just points them to God over and over again, and not in a preachy, moralistic way, but in a way of absolute delight and awe. And one of my greatest joys is we hike almost weekly with our homeschool group, and so many times the kids in our group will yell, "Mrs. Eskridge, come look at this." And I just immediately run over because they found frog's eggs, or they found a stink bug or a snake or an amazing wildflower, because they know I'll delight in it with them. And I think our kids need to see us delighting in God.
I'm just thinking of the insight there for like youth pastors. So many times, again, we kind of go along with the culture. And so the event planning of a typical youth ministry is laser tag, or it's some entertainment piece. It's Disneyland or an amusement park. It's like, well, gosh, what would it look like for youth ministries to be more purposeful in this, to intentionally get their kids out on these adventures that get them more in touch with the natural world, and it's not merely entertainment, but there's a purpose of maybe doing, maybe all your activities are hikes and adventures and, camping and those kind of things. So,
well, it makes, I wonder if we think about this stuff, we're not thinking about it in the correct way. And so we think we have to do these grand things or entertain our kids, or do these big, to really let God impact their hearts. We have to do this curriculum or this Bible study with them, but we dismiss this whole other piece of maybe we just need to go into nature and let God do his work in letting them, well, it might take a while. We might have to detox them a little bit, because frankly, I have to detox myself anytime we go on a hike or do something outside. It takes me a minute to stop my mind from spinning and just to rest, and then to start to observe. And that's a habit. Like what you're talking about, kids noticing things about bugs, that takes some habits for them that actually they do have. But when they're distracted all the time, it's not developed. But the more we go outside with them, then they do notice bugs and different things. And then we can start to help them to ask good questions like, why would God have made this beetle's belly red?
Right.
Why would he have done that? Have you ever thought about that? Or, things like that. But this takes time and it takes intentionality. And I think sometimes we just, like a youth pastor saying, hey, just don't even worry about having a speaker or something. Just go into maybe camp, even though it's hard, and read scripture, and then let the kids just spend some time in quiet. And it almost seems too simple. Or if your family's really struggling, maybe what your family needs is a night or two away from everything and in quiet. So, okay, so we want to point to your resources. Sorry, did you want to say something too? You can see you're getting me excited about this.
You're getting
I'll
me
interview
excited.
you next, Erin. Okay?
I would say too that I think a lot of times moms, especially when our kids are younger, they want to push back on this idea, because the reality is it does make more work, right? You take your kids out on a hiking trail, or even to the park, like they're probably going to get muddy or bring home sand, or they might like get stung by a bee or fall on a cactus. Like all those things have happened.
I had one that had an accident. You're potty training, and one of the kids, has an accident, like right in the middle, and you're like, great, I'm out here. What am I going to do? Right. Well, it ends up you can't do anything, so you just keep walking.
You just keep going.
But yes, things happen, and you're like, great, this is just more work.
Right. But I think that if I always try to parent with like a long-term vision. So the idea is, yes, it's hard now when they're all little, but one day what is going to happen because we put in the work now. And I will say, having hiked, nursed while hiking, have, diaper explosions while hiking, kids getting muddy, kids getting wet, kids crying, me crying, all of that has happened. But now I have these teens who are so capable. If we go for a hike that's, under 5 miles, they're like, it's kind of short. It's a little boring. Because they've built this appetite, but they also have found, they can pack their own backpacks for a day or for a whole weekend. They know what they need. They can manage, they can find joy in these experiences. And, I think they've been set up for a lifetime of joy in the outdoors and seeking that as peace and experiencing God. So yes, it is hard work in the beginning. We say in our family, it will make a great story later. So if it's terrible now, later on, you'll laugh about it. And sometimes that's all that gets you through, but it is worth it. So if your listeners are like, oh, this sounds good, but I can't do it. I'm saying, yes, it's hard, but it will be worth it.
All right. So I want our listeners to get your 100 Days of Adventure resource book.
Don't say
workbook.
So this is really a book for kids.
Oh, this is for the kids.
Yes. So my idea with this book, because this one, Adventuring Together, was for the parents to read and be like, okay, family, we're going to do this. But this is a book that you give to your kids, not so they leave you alone. Like, here,
maybe
be
that
busy
tells you
with
about
this.
my mindset,
But
'cause I'm like-
but really, for them to look at, get excited, and say, "Mom, Dad, will you do this with me?"
Mhm.
So again, the idea is to create connection, but your kids get to be the ones to be excited and invite you into connection through adventure.
That's brilliant, because I'm
That's why I
thinking,
didn't want you to call it a workbook.
I'm
'cause you
looking
don't give it to
through
a
the
kid.
activities going, this is a great idea. Like, get your kids in. But I love the
Learn
way
how to tie knots and
give it to the kids, let the kids lead. And that is, I think that's an insight we've talked about is you want to get your kids excited about something, or you want them to get involved with something, or to gain knowledge about it.
Right.
Give them some leadership. We've just gotten into this habit of parents do everything.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, you want to develop an appreciation in your kids for your cooking, get them to cook.
Yes.
And and just the knowledge of it. And here, this is a great way to have the kids take the lead and go, oh, look at this adventure, Mom, Dad, let's do this. And then you can say, okay, what's because what you have in with each activity is like, okay, what do you need?
Right.
What to do? And so instead of, again, mom saying, oh, now I got all this work to do, you pull the kids in. Okay, let's all take a piece of this. Or kids, you take a lead on it. Hey, Greta, she outlines exactly what we need. Okay, you got to go get this. You got to do this, and then we can do this adventure. So very practical guide right here.
That's what I try. I'm actually not by nature super practical. So I tried very hard to find that part of myself and to put it in.
Yeah.
Okay, I want you to just talk a little bit about the connection that can happen when we're together outside on an adventure doing something. Because I've heard you talk about this, and I've seen this in my own life with my kids, and even in our marriage, like being on a walk together sometimes helps us to have hard conversations we needed to have. Or like with our kids where, they'll get in the car from school or sports. How was it? Fine. Good. You get short answers, right?
Yeah.
But we want to have deeper conversations. But oftentimes it's these like, let's go do something. And then especially being outside, that I've had some really great conversations with my kids, even just of, all of a sudden it's quiet and now they'll start to wonder out loud or say, I'm thinking about maybe I'll be a farmer when I grow up, or, this is when, or like, I'm really upset at my friend.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're hearing about stuff that happened that you didn't know happened. So I know you've experienced this too, just where now you're kind of out with your kids and now they feel a little bit of freedom to talk
Right.
and connect.
I think one of the biggest reasons that, especially going outside to be together and using that as a tool for connecting, is that connection takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are outside camping or simply going for a walk or a hike, sitting by the ocean, like you slow down. And the rest of our life is pretty hurried. And even when we're inside at home, if we're slowing down, it's, generally to eat dinner, or, it's the end of the night where we're tired and we don't really maybe have the energy for a big talk. So if you build in places into your life intentionally where you can slow down with your kids, it creates room for connection to grow, which happens through conversation, time together. And so I think we really do have to build in those places to slow down. And our culture just doesn't have a lot of space for it. But when we're walking together side by side, I think hiking is just one of my favorite places to connect with my kids, because it's not the awkward face-to-face, I have to have this conversation and look them in the eye. Instead, we're shoulder to shoulder. We're commenting on the world around us, and it just creates space and time for conversation and for connection.
Yeah.
Well, our guest has been Greta Eskridge. 2 good books, Adventuring Together and 100 Days of Adventure. People can find these on Amazon. Where can they find you, Greta, online?
You can find me on my website, which is gretaeskridge.com, or on Instagram. My handle there is Ma and Pa Modern, or you can just search Greta Eskridge, and that's where I'm active on social media. So Instagram or my website, and I have lots of stuff about adventure and connection and just all kinds of other things that I love.
Yeah, which is an important strategy for us as parents, is not to just say no to certain things and protect our kids from certain things, but also to then in the place of those things put better things, put good things. And that's really, I think, at the heart of what you're doing here. So thanks, Greta.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Maven exists to help the next generation know truth, pursue goodness, and create beauty for the cause of Christ. To find out more, check out maventruth.com.